So another content control that I think is actually a really interesting one is a content control called Scroll Viewer. And Scroll Viewer actually adds scrolling capabilities to very large content. So let me show you how this works. Let's open up the scrollviewer.xaml file. We'll maximize this window, turn off auto parsing, and change the font. And then finally, let's make this text area bigger. Okay, so you can see our scroll viewer in here, and you can see that its content is just one very, very large ellipse. In fact, this is probably the biggest one we've seen so far for sure. And you can also see that by default, scroll viewer gives us the ability to scroll this up and down. And if I move the scroll bar, you can see the scrolling in action. You probably also noticed, though, that we don't have any horizontal scrolling. So in Scroll Viewer, the visibility of the scroll bars is determined by two properties. These are vertical scroll bar visibility and horizontal scroll bar visibility. Now the default value for vertical scroll bar visibility is auto, and that's why we can see the vertical scroll bar here. But the default value for horizontal scroll bar visibility is none, and that's why it's not showing up. So if we want to make sure that shows up, we can actually just set the horizontal scroll bar visibility property to be auto. So let's set that property on the Scroll Viewer. Alright, now when I refresh, you can see that now we have scroll bars in both directions, and we're able to scroll the content both vertically and horizontally. So Scroll Viewer makes it really easy to add scrolling to your application. Now let's take a look at one more content control. Let's take a look at Tooltip. Alright, so now let's open up another XAML file. This is called tooltip.xaml. Let's double click on that file. And again, we'll maximize the window, turn off auto parsing, and change the text to a larger size, and then display our text. So the thing to notice in here is that we've got a border, and on the border we're setting a property called Tooltip. Now it turns out that nearly every single element in WPF has this property called Tooltip. The really handy thing about that is it makes it possible to set a tooltip on just about anything. The other great thing to know about the Tooltip property is that under the hood it's using a tooltip control. And the tooltip control is just a content control, and like all of the other content controls that we've seen, it can have very rich content. So in this case, we're actually using a stack panel, an ellipse, and a text block to be the content for our tooltip. Now let's take a minute and actually look at the content of that tooltip which we've seen popping up. So that's a simple control, but it's actually really powerful because as you've noticed, you can actually put anything inside of a tooltip, and there are many, many applications for that. So that's the last content control that I wanted to look at. Now we're going to move on to items controls. So let's go ahead and close out of this,